Hello, friends. We're with Kevin Adams, the chairman of the Escambia County School Board. Kevin, congratulations on your recent primary win for re-election.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate my constituents' support. It was a nice win, and I enjoy getting out there and meeting the citizens of Escambia County again.
So tell the viewers your district geographically. What district do you represent?
I am District 1. It goes from Beulah, south of the interstate, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So it's a pretty long district, kind of follows Perdita Bay, and it goes as far east as Marcus Point.
Kevin, there's been a lot of news here recently with the school board when the board members last week voted not to add an item to the agenda that would discuss the superintendent's contract. You were in the minority. Tell us about that vote.
Well, we had one of our board members, I was out of town, and he had sat in this chair, and I watched the videos when I got back in town, and I could see a lot of concern by the citizens and by some of the board members. So he decided he wanted to put an agenda item on the agenda, and so I went ahead and approved it, and I think it was good. I mean, I don't try to decide which board member is should have the right to put a amendment on or not. So they had a vote 3-2 not to even discuss it, and that's the way we left it. So,
do you think that the public deserves to hear that discussion?
I think they do, and it may be more appropriate once we get through these elections. When we get to November, we'll have a new board member for sure coming on for District 3, and so sooner or later we will talk about the superintendent's performance, and we should. We have an appointed superintendent now. He does not go knocking on the doors like I just finished doing, and I got 72% of the vote. So each of the board members, their constituents, they want to hold the superintendent accountable for his actions and his performance.
So, Kevin, most recently, Studio 850 News broke the story about the teacher here in Escambia County who's called upon the staff and the superintendent to remove library books and some classroom novels that she says are probably obscene and are certainly age-appropriate. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree. Some of the stuff that I've looked at, and I've watched your video with that you did with the teacher. Some of it is very graphic, and I'm just one of 5 board members, but for me, it's not appropriate for our classroom settings. But what we will do is what I've asked the superintendent is that I use the term quarantine or restrict them, whichever is the best term to do. We have to make sure the parents know that their child cannot access age-inappropriate or obscene books, that they have that protection, and so they'd be comfortable sending their kids to our schools. So, but definitely some of it is pretty tough stuff.
What do you say to people who say that the teacher's position and perhaps yours amounts to book banning?
Well, I'm not asking to ban any book. Every student we got has a card to go to the public library. The parents go to Barnes and Noble, but we don't allow just anything to be in our media centers. So I'll give you an example. I mean, some of the young men might want Playboys in the media center. We're not going to put Playboys in the media center, okay? I don't think there's 5 votes to do that. So we got to make sure to whatever grade level, because remember, some of these books were down in K-5. They were in middle schools, okay, high school. So we have that new law. I think it's 1467, the law. We have to comply with that law. I agree with Governor DeSantis that parents should have transparency. They should know what books are in that school and in that classroom. I think the law is going to require us to have a very easy searchable format for each school, for each books in there. And so we have the one problem where we got books that are probably going to go in a restricted status, but then you got the other part of it where it may come down to a board vote whether that book should stay in there as according to state law, whether it's pornography, okay, and some of these stuff may count in that area. So some of the books may not. Maybe they'll just stay in a restricted status. So we'll see what the superintendent proposes, but this is where I've been leading them, because the parents should have the right to know what their students are accessing at school, and the responsibility of the school board to make sure they can't access anything they think is age appropriate or obscene. Now, there is discussion by some people that don't care what their may not care what their kids view. I'm not going to advocate for that, but that's their right as a parent. But it's also the right of the parents who do not want their child to have access to that type of material. So to me, some of the examples I gave should not have been paid for by taxpayer dollars.
What
So I
kind
have
of,
concerns.
Kevin, what kind of a grade would you assign Superintendent Smith
Well,
right now?
I'm not, what I've told the superintendent, and we had a long discussion yesterday and talked about it again. I think a lot of these, like the proposed pronoun changes and the CRT videos and the valedictorian, salutatorian, the big deal we had with the IB parents when they were upset about the testing center. Then we had the rules thing. All these are distractions from what we should be focusing on, and that is our low-performing schools and our low-performing students. We need to turn around the declining enrollment. We need to do everything we can to retain teachers and other employees. We've got shortages in almost every position. So we need to somehow get to the point that we're not having these things happen where we can concentrate on the very big issues we have in the school district. And that's turning around these students that have problems.
You mentioned a couple things I want to ask you about. The valedictorian, salutatorian issue. For people who may not have heard about that came up at a school board meeting here 5 or 6 months ago. Tell us real quick what that was about and what was the outcome.
Well, staff, it was in the curriculum staff, curriculum instruction. They had proposed to do away with valedictorian and salutatorian. And I like those traditions that we have. I didn't want us to move to a participation trophy type thing. I like it when kids compete for honors like that. So we have Latin clubs that go off to get state championship. We got football teams. So competition is good. So I didn't agree with that, and the rest of the board didn't either.
You mentioned declining enrollment. The superintendent has said publicly that in the district, the enrollment has been declining. What does that really mean? And is this something serious? Is something we all should be worried about?
Well, we need to be worried about it because it's getting more competitive for students. So with the vouchers that are being offered that these parents can take and go off to private schools or any other school that comes up, but so it's going to make us more competitive for students. So we got to maintain good order and discipline in our schools. We've got to try to cover our teacher shortage so all the students can learn. So we need to make it where we are the choice. So I've told the superintendent, if we maintain good order and discipline in our schools, then parents won't be choicing out of that school. So,
Kevin, I've heard you say at school board meetings that the COVID pandemic and the way the schools were administered, not just here but everywhere, set our students learning back in a tremendous way. Have we recovered from that yet?
Not yet. And that's where I have told the superintendent I'm expecting us to at least be pre-COVID or better with our school grades by the end of the year. That's the target I'm looking for, because when Superintendent Malcolm Thomas left, we had 3D school. And due to COVID, we had many schools that were low performing. So I think we're finally coming out of it, but because some of the students were allowed to go remote, some of the students basically missed 18 months of school. I mean, so I make a joke, we got red shirt kindergartners and that kind of stuff, because some of these kids that were supposed to be remote really didn't do what they were supposed to, but they by the executive order of Tallahassee, they were able to stay at home. So they were really behind, and so when you look at our at-risk students, our low-performing students, they were behind anyway coming into our system because of the achievement gaps that we got, and this only made it fall farther behind. So our full focus should be getting us back to how we were before COVID and then improving that margin.